Hey, good morning. Brian Wise here. Today is August the 2nd. And yeah, man, I tell you, I've just been through it. So I did not post a video yesterday. Two or three different reasons as to why I didn't get around to that. Not even stuff I really wanted to talk about, but I think it had everything to do pretty much with my soap making experience. So I started making or trying to make the liquid soap to go along with my bar soaps and the candles. Again, I cannot multitask. That is just something I've never cared to do, and nothing that I apparently have any affinity for anyway. So I guess it's a good thing that I don't care to multitask. But I will tell you, watching the tutorials on making liquid soap, it seems quite easy, and it really is. And you have a recipe and what could go wrong. But it's my experience, even with making candles, you can watch all these things, these tutorials, and I've watched hours and hours of tutorials, not only about making candles and everything that's involved, the science and the mechanics of the candle making process, but also when it comes to making bar soaps. And I'm not even slightly exaggerating. I'm telling you, hours and hours of tutorials and reading and research. And for example, like in the bar soap, all of the different acids that are produced, and uh, this, that, citric acid, and all of those kinds of things. And what does that mean? And pH. But anyway, I think I had bar soap down. But the liquid soap was a very taxing experience. And here's the point that I'm trying to make: it doesn't matter how well read one is when it comes to, I guess, doing this kind of stuff, or I would imagine anything that you endeavor, such as making a garment to wear or baking a cake. Because until you get into the thick of it, so to speak, you don't know. And it doesn't really matter how well the tutorials are. Again, in my experience, it just feels like there's always some crucial bit of information that's left out. For example, I'm doing the liquid soap in a crock pot, and I've watched so many of them. But do I leave it on high here? When do I turn it to low? And I find myself going back and watching the same video over and over and over, thinking, well, maybe I missed that piece of the pie, and I'm going to watch it again, because we all know, like when you're watching the movie for the first time, oh, it's wonderful. And then when you watch the movie for the second time, you think, well, I don't remember seeing that in the first movie. So you do miss bits of information. As a therapist, I know that everything that we see pretty much goes through perception filters. For example, we could watch the same event, and based on our perception filters, which comes down to our valuing systems and those kinds of things, we can interpret the event in very different ways. We see the same thing, but we can assign different meanings, not only through our valuing filter, but from what we have experienced in real life. So it so I'm watching the videos over and over, but it doesn't matter. So I started the soap making process that morning. It's easy. Got my recipe tweaked. I wanted to put in glycerin. So you have your total amount of water. Let's just say 50 grams of water. But if you want to put in 5 grams of glycerin, you have to back that out of your water. So now you have 45 grams of glycerin, 5 grams of water. I mean, 45 grams of water and 5 grams of glycerin for a total of 50 grams of water, because that's what your recipe is calling for example. But I also wanted to incorporate sugar into my liquid soap, because if you will remember from the previous video, the recipe that I was following had the bubbling factor fairly low. And again, I like a lot of bubbles, and I think that most people do like a lot of bubbles. Again, if we don't have lots and lots of bubbles in our soap, then I think for the average Joe, we're thinking, well, this isn't really good soap. Something's not working. You've been jilted. You've been sold a false bill of goods. So for marketing purposes, I wanted more bubbles. So now I'm down to 45 grams of water, 5 grams of glycerin, right? Because you want 50 grams fluid. But now I had to dissolve sugar in water, and then I had to back that out of my total waters. I didn't tell you this, but the other day I was making some bar soap, and I wanted to add sugar to my bar soap because there again I wanted to really lather up as well. And I had already prepared my lye water, my lye solution. That's the sodium hydroxide and distilled water combined. That's your lye solution. And I let it sit for hours and hours and hours because I got busy doing something else. Well, and let's just say I was making 2 pounds of soap, hard soap. And so I had 1 teaspoon of just pure granulated sugar that you put in your coffee, leveled it off, and I dropped it into the lye solution. And my lye solution was too cold, and it immediately crystallized. And I was just so devastated because, I mean, you know these things, right? You know that sugar's got to melt in reasonably warm, at least room temperature water or something. And so when you drop it in ice water, it's going to crystallize. So then I had to deal with that. So going back to, so that was just a lesson learned. And again, I watched so many tutorials on that very thing, but nobody's ever said, oh, but the water needs to be at a certain temperature. I think that if I would have added it to the lye solution when I first added the sodium hydroxide, of course, sodium hydroxide, when you add it to the water, the temp shoots up to 230, 240 degrees, give or take, on either side. And of course, that would have totally melted the sugar and avoided the crystallization. But I just wasn't thinking. And I think that, again, it goes back to, remember, I was talking about proper planning and patience and those kinds of things. And patience, and I'm just not paying attention. So I really, really had to be very mindful when it comes to making these products. Anyway, back to the liquid soap. So I have 45 grams of water, I have 5 grams of glycerin, and I was making 70 ounces, which again is way too much. It's way too much. My crock pot turned out to be too small. I had to transfer it over into a crawfish pot, but then I had to go find the crawfish pot that I haven't used in years. Had to sterilize. I ran it through the dishwasher, sanitized, soaked it, all of that kind of good stuff, alcoholed it, scrubbed it. So that took quite a bit, and then I had to transfer everything over into the crawfish pot, put it on the stove, set it on a very low flame. I have a KitchenAid inset stove top, it sits in the top of my cabinet on an island, and I hate that thing. I didn't want it when we got it. I'm a firm believer in this. You do get what you pay for, and yeah, you can buy store brand vegetable like can of corn's corn, but you can't buy cheap tinfoil, for example. I mean, you really do get what you pay for. And I've even found that even in the cheap vegetables, like the store brand cans of vegetables, like I said, corn is corn, but in the cheaper brands, there's like stems and bits and pieces, and then you have to go through and deal with all of that. So it all comes down to quality. So yeah, KitchenAid, yeah, I wouldn't call it a high-end product, somewhere in the middle, I would suppose, as compared to Wolf product. But anyway, we got it, and I hate it, and it's 5 burners, it's 3 grates, and so after I transferred everything over to the crawfish pot, and I have it on there, and I finally got the flame adjusted, and then the grate slips, and then I had to take everything off, put the grates back on, put it back on, and then they slip again, and I was so frustrated, I almost took the whole darn thing and just threw it out. Back to the crock pot thing, though, when I had to, you have a stick blender, so after you do your oils and you add your lye solution, which for liquid soap, it's potassium, right? KOA, K is the chemical symbol for potassium. And you just stick blend, and I'm thinking, oh my God, the video that I watched, remember I told you my other video, I even called the name and I told you guys to go check her out. And no shade on her, but nowhere did she say, you have to stick blend this for 75 minutes. What she did say, you just have to stick blend this for a very long time. Well, what's a very long time? Again, it all comes down to perception. A very long time to somebody like me might be 45 minutes, whereas someone like you, it might be 4 hours. I don't know. Again, so I'm stick blending. Then I have an emulsion blender, right? It's one of those stick things. And then the motor gets hot. And I mean, it is so hot that I actually have to, and I also knew this from some other tutorials, like if you just constantly run that stick blender, especially if it's a cheap one, it's gonna burn out. So then I kept thinking, well, shit, now what happens if my blender burns out? Can I leave this? Can I run to the store, get another stick blender? Maybe I should have had 2 stick blenders. I think maybe I have a backup blender somewhere. I mean, it was a really good learning experience, but I have tennis elbow, I guess. It's right here, because when it finally started to thicken up, the oil and the lye solution, and it's like it comes to trace and it looks like applesauce or a really thick clumpy oatmeal, and then it turns to something that's reminiscent of taffy, like you pull it up and it just kind of stretches down from your blender and everything, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is finally working. Also, what I've learned, I used a lot of olive oil in my recipe, and olive oil takes a longer time to get to emulsification or trace, say more than, say, coconut, but you don't want a lot of coconut in your liquid soap because coconut's more of a hardening oil. So it starts to thicken up, and I'm thinking, oh, and it's stretchy and it's taffy-like, just like in the video. And I think, finally, geez, blender's hot. So now I'm having to stop, stir, stop the blender, continue stirring, stop the blender, continue stirring. And I did this for, I'm going to say, well over an hour, probably an hour and a half. I wish that I would have timed that so I would have had an exact amount of time that I did that. Anywho, point being, my elbow right here is like, that hurts, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know. So I did something during all of that, because even after I got it down to the paste, you're trying to get it all down to a paste. It cooks, you get it down to a paste, and then you want your pH to be between 8 and 12, something like that. I had a pH meter that I calibrated it 3 different times, thinking, well, maybe I just didn't do something right. So I calibrated it. I followed those instructions to the letter. And keep in mind, all of this is going on at the same time. Proper planning. I'm not blaming anybody or anything, not even the process. I'm just really going to assign responsibility to myself, because it just comes down to proper planning. But again, it just looks so easy on the videos, and then when you get into the mix of it all, then all these little things start to come out. Well, crap, she didn't say anything about this, or I didn't realize this. So I got it down to paste, right? And this is when you want your pH to be between 8 and 12, or 6 and 12. And then you can take it out, and then you, or not take it out, but then you add double your oil weight. So if I had 70 ounces of oil weight and I got it down to paste, then I'm going to add 140 ounces of distilled water. Well, guess what? My crock pot, although it's fairly large, but we're talking a lot of fluid, and it wasn't going to fit. So then that's when I moved it over to the crock pot. Well, I moved it over to the crock pot. No, you're right. I moved it to the crawfish pot that I had to go clean and sterilize and do all of that too, which took a very long time. And then I added the water and just stir it, trying to. But what I didn't remember is that you just add the water and you walk away from it. But see, I'm paranoid because it's on the oven or the stove, and there's a flame, and I'm thinking, well, will it scorch? Will it stick? Will well, it's not a crock pot, and I think there's a difference in cooking something on a stovetop versus a crock pot. Um, like you wouldn't melt chocolate straight on a flame. You do it in a double boiler. So either I'm going to have to get a bigger crock pot or maybe just get the double boiler. I don't know. Anyway, so I finally said, you know what? I've just all day long I did this, and I finally just turned it off and went to bed. I it was a complete disaster. I got up the next morning, I looked at it, and it had turned into the most beautifully colored amber gel. It was like, not jello, but like, it was pliable. So I got my utensil, alcoholed it, because I'm doing everything. It was sterile, sterile, sterile. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to probably be hard as concrete. I don't know. And just just scooped it up. It was like soft serve ice cream, but not the melty kind. But again, not thinking, I'm thinking, well, I don't know what happened, some kind of chemical, I don't know. So it's trash. So I just left it alone, had coffee, just feeling so let down, irritated. I don't know, because it was so much work, and my elbow is just killing me. So then I had a phone call, and I was processing my experience, and it was suggested that maybe I add more water. And then I'm thinking, of course, add more water. It's still in the gel phase, or the paste phase. And although I added 140 ounces of water because I had 70 ounces of oil, and then the oil absorbs the water, right? But apparently, and you can add more, whatever. But I needed more because it just hadn't absorbed enough water to move out of this paste phase. So I added more. Long story short, I finished. I got a huge thing of liquid soap. It's this tall. I did put a preservative in it because I'm paranoid that I'm going to sell this to somebody and they're going to squirt out some soap and it's going to have a big lump of mold in it or something like that. And it's also suggested or recommended that if you're going to sell your liquid soap, that you do put a preservative in it. And here's my thing. If you're looking for all natural, that's wonderful, but it's like, not all preservatives are bad. Like citric acid, it's a natural preservative. But anyway, I put some preservative in it, and I didn't think that it was, I think I probably put too much water, actually. Because I added water, melted everything, turned off the flame. I would go back to check it, and it would start gelling up again. And I'm thinking, I don't know that this is the reason, but I'm thinking it's because, again, I didn't have enough. So I kept adding water, and apparently that was it. Because after it melted at whatever point, now this is the next day, even more hours into it, it actually I turned the flame off to let it cool. And it actually did not gel up. So there we are. So I had my preservative, and then I went on and I put a little thickener in it, which I don't think I put enough thickener, and I was afraid to because, again, I've never worked with it, and then it's a 1 to 8% thickener, and so then you had math to do, and I can tell you this, I've learned, that may seem like easy math to you, but I've learned, or maybe relearned, a lot of math than I ever learned at Caldwell Parish High School in Caldwell Parish, Columbia, Louisiana. I can tell you, and this is all off on a different topic, but I got the worst fucking education in Caldwell Parish for a variety of reasons. But I'm thinking back over the teachers that I had, and I had 3: Hillman, Scribner, Morse, and Grant. And that's over K through 12, and I don't think that's saying a whole lot. Kudos to those people. I think they're all dead now except for Mr. Hillman. But they were good teachers, and under them, I actually did quite well in math. But anyway, all of that aside, so that I had the math to figure. So I put the thickener in, and like I said, I don't think I put enough, and that's okay, because I think that, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. So anyway, um, plus, like I said, I'm trying to, because I'm doing this at a farmer's market, so I'm trying to have as few ingredients as possible, because that seems, people who go to farmer's market, they're earthy, you know, and of course that's kind of the whole thing, right? To make your homemade stuff, because if you don't care about all the processing and the chemicals, just go to Walmart and buy the stuff that's out there. You know, it's really quite interesting. If you look at the ingredients on a bar of soap, you know, you can't pronounce 90% of it, and it's a list like this. And you look on the ingredients and say my soap or homemade soaps, and there's 4 or 5 ingredients. So, having said all of that, the liquid soap making process was very taxing. It was a good learning experience. I decided I'm not doing liquid soap. I've watched a lot of tutorials too on markets, how to go to market, what to take to market, those kinds of things. And one of the disadvantages of people who participate in these markets is the fact that they have all these things to sell. They have keychains and wallets and all these different things. And for the person running the market, it's really a complicated thing, because where do you put these people? I know for me, like when I'm making soap, I can't do more than 2 loads at a time. And if I'm doing a complicated design, I can't do but 1 loaf at a time. And I've also learned now that with liquid soap, I can't do a 70-ounce batch unless I have an industrial size crock pot and this, that, and the other. Because I'm in there stirring, I think it's going to scorch or stick or something like that. When you can just put it in your crock pot, it's a crock pot. Just let it cook and walk off from it and not do all this stirring. But I'm thinking, so I made some mistakes, and that's on me, but I've learned a lot. But the point is, I'm not going to do soap anymore. But then I did get a finished product, and I have a huge thing of liquid soap. And here it is. I'm just going to show this to you. So, yeah. Ta-da! Liquid soap. And I don't know if you can see. Look, it's really quite clear. That's, I had bad lighting. It's morning time here in Colorado Springs, and the good thing about Colorado Springs in the morning, I'm at the base of Pikes Peak, and I'm looking out of my window in my office, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And I have mountains, and deer just walked across the yard, and rabbits. I was in my hot tub the other morning. The sun was just coming up. I do my hot tub every morning, and I meditate, and I have speakers out there, and I'm like, hey, Google, play meditation music. And so I meditate. And anyway, I heard a noise, and I turned around, and there's a black bear literally 10, 15 feet from me. And it wasn't a tiny black bear. This black bear was the size of a Shetland pony. And I wasn't scared. I was excited, and I just kind of sat there and stared at him, and he's staring at me. I have a fountain in the very back of the yard, and I think he probably was going to get some water. Anyway, I just got out, wrapped a towel around me, came inside, called Rod, wanted Roddy to come out and see the bear. Of course, by the time he got upstairs, the bear was gone. But again, back to the lighting. So Colorado Springs, Colorado in the morning, it's wonderful, it's crisp, it's cool. And by the way, we're going through a little heat thing right now, and I think today's temperature is going to be like 92, 93, something like that. Nothing like in the South, and I'll never live in the South again. But I am ready for some winter. I'm ready for some snowstorms and those kinds of things. But I have this gorgeous window here, and the mountains and the scenery, and it's absolutely wonderful. But you can't see, but I have perfect clarity in my soap. Now, in the big thing of soap, I have it stored, or as the soapers say, sequestered downstairs, because it's not clear. But what I've read is you need to let it sit for a few days and rest and relax, and things will come together. So we'll see. but I'm also paranoid about selling my liquid soap. It's not as thick as I would like for it to be, but I don't want a lot of chemicals in it. And there are liquid soaps out there, like some, I'm not going to call out brand names, but if you go buy these brand name liquid soaps at a high end department store, they're runny. And this stuff bubbles like crazy. So the fact that I put a lot of castor oil in here, which increases the bubbling factor, but the sugar water that I put in here also increased the bubbling, of course. But see, even with that, because when it kept thickening up, I'm thinking, well, it must be the sugar, because I didn't have, the lady whose recipe I followed didn't have sugar. I added sugar. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's why mine turned out this way and hers didn't. But it turned out exactly like it was supposed to. This beautifully colored, amber colored pile of gel. You could put it into a tin and just pull it out and maybe use it as a shaving thing, because it's just soap, right? Anyway, it was an ordeal. I'm tired. After the whole soaping experience, I had a little bit of wine, and I probably had too much wine because I had it, and I had just gone through it with this soap, and I had just decided I'm not doing it anymore. And Rodney's been gone all week working, and when he's gone, I just don't sleep that good anyway. Anywho, I'm back on the soap. I slept like a dream last night. Today, I am going to make Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies. I'm not making any soap. I have so much bar soap downstairs. I demolded the soap that I made 3 days ago, and I sliced it, and it turned out well. The soap that I put into the flour molds, though, however, didn't turn out quite so well. But again, it started clumping up and it started getting hard really fast. And it's not because I over processed it. I think it was the scent that I put in there. And plus, I had too much going on. Again, I had just too much going on. Had I just did a loaf of soap and processed that, it would have been just fine. But I've got a loaf of soap, and then I've got molds going over here, and I'm trying to do a complicated design. And again, it was just too much. So I've learned a lot of valuable lessons. I want to sell my soap, though. I'm really proud of it. Can you really just see that? I'm going to have to do something about this lighting, I suppose. But I'm excited. I'm going to market in the morning. So this afternoon, I need to get everything out and see how many candles. I have like 18 cents. Go to my website, yourcolorpuppy.com. All of my scents are there. I'm going to be putting my bar soaps and my liquid soaps on there as well at some point. I have the big thing of liquid soap sequestered. I'm going to leave it sequestered for a few days to see if the clarity improves. But even if the clarity doesn't improve, it's not a flaw. It's still soap, and it's perfectly fine. I did read somewhere, though, this girl had made a lot of liquid soap, and she felt like it was too thin, and she didn't do anything to it. And 2-3 months down the road, it got really thick and clumped up. So I'm thinking, oh shit, like I can't sell this soap to somebody and then it clumps up, 3 months from now. So do I keep my liquid soap and just see how long it lasts? I mean, it has a shelf life of up to 2 years. And especially alcohol, the heck out of everything, the inside, the outside, the lids, when I took the screw top out, right, I set it aside, and then before I put it back in, I'm squirting the whole pump thing, and then wiping it down with my alcohol washcloth. And anyway, I'm just gonna wait and see how it goes. So there you go. That's my liquid soap. That was my experience making liquid soap. I am going to make some more liquid soap. I actually ordered a recipe book. I don't know that I'm advanced enough to create my own recipes, so we'll see. But I'm going to my market tomorrow. It's the Colorado Farm and Art Market, the one I've been going to, and I'm doing quite well there. And then I'm going this Sunday to a market in Manitou Springs. I love Manitou Springs. I literally can get to Manitou Springs in 5 minutes. It's through the Garden of the Gods. It's absolutely beautiful here. Garden of the Gods is incredible, of course. Not so much these days because we're pretty much at the height, maybe coming down just a little bit at the height of tourist season. School's about ready to kick back in, so that'll cut down on some of that. So I'm looking forward to that. But Manitou Springs, it's a Sunday market, and I'm doing that every Sunday from 2 o'clock until 7 p.m. through October, except for the week that I'm going to be in Ireland. And I'm really looking forward to my trip to Ireland. So there you have my soaping experience. Sorry for the delay. I'm going to go live with this soon. Look, peace out. Stay safe out there. And just remember, soap it up and see what happens. See what comes out of it. Ciao.